Delmarva Studios proudly presents The Weekly Retro, starring Gunnar and George. The Weekly Retro is a podcast that takes a lighter look at life, from the 80s to today. We talk about classic music, classic TV, and classic movies that we all loved growing up. We also talk about how life has changed over the last 40 years, for the good and not so good. Send your questions, comments, and concerns to theweeklyretro@mail.com. Without any further ado, here are your hosts, Gunnar and George. Greetings and salutations, fellow retro maniacs. Welcome back to episode 4 of the Weekly Retro. I am one of your hosts from Dover, Delaware. I am George, and about 30 miles northwest of how the crows fly, we have
Gunnar.
Gunnar, and, what's going on, man?
Not much, man. How was your weekend?
It was very busy.
Yeah.
Very busy.
Same here, man. Same
Holy
here.
cow. On all facets, personal, job, we're house hunting, job recruiter, one thing after another. We did 3 shows this weekend. As we sit, I'm 87 downloads away from 50,000, so I'm really excited. Today's a big day.
Awesome.
So let's see. Let's pay the bills up front. I have updated the website, theweeklyretro.com. Our songs of the week and our movies of the week, they're all... the little video clips are up there, so go enjoy those. If you want to send us an email, theweeklyretro@mail.com, theweeklyretro@mail, not gmail.com. And then, of course, you can follow us on Twitter, which I need to do a better job of checking. It's at The Weekly Retro, at The Weekly Retro. So let's kick it off, man. Gunnar, what do you have for this day in retro history?
All right. So I have a today in history, non-music related. Let's see here. So I don't remember this, obviously, because of the year. In 1980, rioting claimed 18 lives after Miami Liberty City, after an all-white jury in Tampa acquitted 4 former Miami police officers of fatally beating black insurance executive Arthur McDuffie. I don't remember that at all, or hearing anything about that. Have you?
What year was that?
1980.
No, I sure don't. And news wasn't as instantaneous.
No,
back then.
It sure wasn't. Moving forward 7 years, in 1987 on this day, 37 American sailors were killed when an Iraqi warplane attacked the U.S. Navy frigate Stark in the Persian Gulf. Iraq apologized for the attack, calling it a mistake, and actually paid the government $27 million in compensation.
Yeah, it reminds me of the USS Liberty incident that happened in, I think, 67 or 68.
Yeah. So that's my day in history. Got a few really cool this day in music histories. In this day, 1963, the Monterey Festival, the very first Monterey Folk Festival, took place over 3 days in Monterey, California. The festival featured the likes of Joan Baez, Bob Dylan, and Peter, Paul, and Mary. So that festival got really big. In fact, Jimi Hendrix, as well as The Who, Jimi Hendrix actually partook of that a couple of years. One of his concerts being recorded, which are available. But so that was back in 1963.
How many tons of ganja do you think was smoked that weekend?
Yeah, I would nary I don't know. I wouldn't be able to even venture a guess.
What an interesting time, the whole flower power hippie era, which, by the way, another government-led thing to take away from people. Oh, by the way, we're shipping your brothers and sisters off to Vietnam.
Yeah. Yeah, and '63, that was really before you got into a lot of the turbulent, times, which kind of occurred later in the '60s with the civil rights movement and the assassination of Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King.
Yeah, that was all 68 was a crazy, crazy, crazy year.
Yeah, yep. And '63 actually also was the year that John F. Kennedy was assassinated. That
November 22nd, 1963.
Yeah, so that was the first Monterey Festival. 1967, on this day, the Beatles, working at Abbey Road's studio, at Abbey Road studio, recorded a new John Lennon song called "You Know My Name." The song wasn't finished until almost nearly a little over 2 years later. And was released on March 1970 as the B-side of "Let It Be."
Wow.
Yeah. Let's see. All right, you'll like this one. This day, 1975, Led Zeppelin played the first of 5 sold-out shows at Earl's Court Arena, London, England.
Okay.
17,000 fans per night, and their set list included rock and roll. The song remains the same. One of my favorites, and yours too, the Rain Song, Kashmir, No Quarter, Going to California, etc. You'll like this. Tickets cost, I guess it would be considered £1, which is $1.70 in U.S. money. So that was in 1970.
And 1970?
Or 1975, rather.
Okay, 75. So they would have been supporting their physical graffiti, right?
I'm assuming that is what they were supporting, was physical graffiti, yes. Which is my favorite album.
I was going to say, that's
Zeppelin.
Definitely top 1 or 2 albums all time.
Yeah, so...
is there another album you'd put on top of physical graffiti from any other musician?
No.
That is the gold standard in music.
For me, it is. And I think a lot of people, if you were to ask, diehard Zeppelin fans, they will probably tell you that album is either at number 1 or in the top 3. If you look at the top Zeppelin albums for any, if you YouTube it, the few that I've watched, physical graffiti is right at the top. So
absolutely,
it didn't hurt that it was a double album too. So
it's funny though. My favorite song, and we're not going to turn it into a Zeppelin, but once we start talking about Led Zeppelin, it's hard to just walk away. When the Levee Breaks is my favorite song.
When the Levee Breaks actually is my all-time favorite Zeppelin song as well. Yeah. And that album, ranks, it's in my top 4.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely, that might be number 3.
Yeah. What's your number 2?
That one, and I really, if I think what album have I played the most over my, let's say I'm 39, so
yeah.
Power Slave has a special place in my heart because I had never listened to quote unquote metal before that. I was more pop, Quiet Riot, Motley Crue. That's not really hard rock. You know what I'm saying? I don't consider them really hard, like metal almost, I guess, metal. And to me, that was a brand new sound that I've never heard before. And that introduced me to a whole new genre. I started listening to Judas Priest, Ozzy Osbourne, Ronnie James Dio, Rainbow in the Dark, just a whole new, it opened my eyes to a whole new genre. Yeah. So that, Maiden really has a special place in my heart.
You brought up something to me. You reached out to me the other day and said that Iron Maiden actually got, they missed getting voted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. How can that possibly be?
Do you see who's in the Rock and Roll? And I'm glad we waited to the show to have this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages. Starting, well, let me run this past Gunner first because this is our show. I think what we need to do, just think about this for a second. Have you seen the inductees of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
I've seen for this year or just
no, all time.
Oh yeah, I have.
Tell me it's not a joke.
I'll keep my comments to a somewhat minimum. The fact that you've inducted Kiss into the Hall of Fame 7-8 years ago, but once again Iron Maiden didn't make it. There's something wrong there. Somewhere.
Not even that. It's called the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, correct?
Yes.
Why is Whitney Houston and Notorious B.I.G. in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Exactly. Yeah. I wasn't sure where you were going with that, but now that you say that, yeah. Notorious B.I.G., that's not rock and roll.
No, that's like putting Dan Marino in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame.
What's that?
It's like putting Dan Marino in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
No, I see what you're saying. I agree. I think there needs to be, if you're going to include different genres in, a rock and roll Hall of Fame, what you need to do is then maybe change it and have, call it the, Music Hall of Fame, or have your own rap, Hall of Fame, or have your own pop music Hall of Fame. But, and not to take anything away from Whitney Houston, I thought she was very talented. And she, really, was the face of the late 80s, especially for female artists. But, when she's in, and, Iron Maiden's been around, what was her first year? I want to say 81. So you're talking about a group that's been around for 40 years and has stood the test of time and, have come out with just some spectacular music through the years and lineup changes. And, they're not in the hall. I don't know, man. It's absurd.
I could go on and on about that. I can guarantee you that they've sold more albums than 95% of the people who are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And that's not a lowball number. That's an accurate number. So it's kind of disgusting to me. What I would like to do, I'm going to propose this to you, and I should have got with you offline about this, but we're busy. I think we need to start a little store, sell some T-shirts, and maybe get a Patreon going and do special episodes. I want to raise money. It cost me $108 even to buy a website, to set it up, and have it, ownership of the domain name and everything for a year. I would like, more than anything right now, because it's nice to have a distraction from all the craziness that's going on in this world, I would like to start our own Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I don't care what we call it. If listeners, if you're listening at home, you have an idea, the real Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or something like that, and we're going to own that domain name. And every year we're going to have our own inductees, and we're only going to do 5 a year, maybe 3 a year to make it more special. And I think there's a lot of people that would get behind it.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm going to try, and I think you'll do the same thing. I consider myself a very objective person. So a lot of this, I think, is, I hate to use this term, a lot of these bands that aren't getting in, there's definitely politics behind it.
Oh, of course.
Which is the whole reason why they're not in it. So I say that for this reason. I'm just throwing this name out there, not because, I'm not a fan personally, but I will tell you, for example, when I say I'm going to try to be as objective as I can be, our hall that you're proposing, it's not going to be just bands that you and I like.
No, not at all.
and I say that because, like, for instance, I'm not a Bob Dylan fan. I appreciate what he's done, and I appreciate his place in music folklore. But just because I don't like him or I don't care for his music, and again, I'm just using his name as a sheer example because it's going to be our Hall of Fame.
Absolutely.
But if I think somebody belongs in there, even though I may not listen to him or really care for him that much, then they're going to be there because, you have to look at, why are these bands or these artists in the Hall of Fame? Is it because they sold, so many million records? Is it because, no, you got to look at the whole picture. How did they impact music? Look at what Iron Maiden did for music, especially at a time when metal bands are trying to gain their footing. And, Iron Maiden has got to be considered one of the forefathers of metal.
Absolutely.
And like I said, you had a few lineup changes, and you had a few different singers. But yet, here we are 40 years later, and when they do, of course, we've had COVID, but we haven't been able to have concerts. But they sell out arenas, and they're in their 60s and 70s. So yeah, there's something sinister behind this. Why they haven't made it? It's an absolute joke that they are not. And I don't know how many years they've been on the ballot, so to speak. But the fact that they keep missing it, there's something not right.
Yeah, and what even makes it worse is they're great guys. Do you remember about a decade ago the big volcano in like Greenland, and it interfered with the planes and all that stuff? They own their own plane, and Bruce Dickinson is like a licensed pilot, and he's been flying his plane. He stopped everything he was doing to fly food to that country.
No, that can't be right because they're devil worshippers, and they maybe they were bringing sacrificial lambs to honor Satan. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe that story isn't correct, George. I don't think that they humanitarians really.
They have sold over 100 million albums.
That's the only statistic I need. Personally,
you know what I'm saying? Get out of here. Yeah. You look at the groups in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I guarantee you some of them haven't even sold 20 million albums. T-Rex, how many albums did T-Rex have?
That I don't know. If I was to guess, I'd say 3.
Yeah, and they had one big song, right?
Yeah.
And they are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Yeah, now I will probably, if I was to look at the list of, the bands that are there, I would probably be on board with, 80% of them. But I will also tell you, I could probably rattle off, you have opened a big can of worms for me because I'm kind of pissed about this.
I am too. I'm livid, and I always say, even if I won an all-expenses paid trip to Cleveland to see an Indians game, and they handed me free admission to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I'm not kidding you. I'm a person of pretty strong conviction. I would not step foot in that place. No,
I wouldn't either. I am actually looking. I wonder if there's a way you can get. Bear with me. But
I'm going to see. Yeah, you do that. I want to see if realrockandrollofame.com is taken yet.
Yeah. Okay.
Real Rock and Roll HOF.com. Yeah. That's the one I'd like. Nope.
It's ours. All right. While you're doing that, I actually got an alphabetized list of every single inductee. Now, obviously, we don't have the time to go through all of them. But
give me the ones that are just ridiculous.
Well, I want to read off. I want to read off ones that are obvious to me. First ballot, slam dunk, no doubt about it. Hall of Famers.
Okay.
But then I want to read the ones that are glaring that I'm going to like Notorious B.I.G. and see what you think.
Okay.
One that pops out actually that you're going to agree with this, not even a question. They were in the class of 2001, and that would be those boys from Boston, Aerosmith.
Yep.
Joan Baez, class of 2017. What she did for folk music, and she was a huge part of Woodstock in 1969. I'm in agreement with that. The Beach Boys, yeah, not even a question. This next band, I don't know. When you're talking Hall of Fame, and I wanted your opinion on it. They were inducted in 2012, and I do like this band. Let me just first say that I really and when we were in our, I think George, our junior year at our school, they were big, but that would be the Beastie Boys.
Do you consider them rock and roll?
Well, one that's up for debate because they did use a lot of Zeppelin riffs, but as a band, no, they're considered rap.
Of course they are, and like I said, it's okay. I enjoy them. I have License to Ill on CD, and that's fine. But I wouldn't put them in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's not rock and roll.
No, and that's why I brought them up to you because I didn't know what your thoughts on that were.
No, and I enjoy them. I even the one they did in '98 was really good. I forget the name of the song now, but I really enjoy them. They definitely belong in the rap, if you want to call it rap and roll Hall of Fame, or the rap or R&B, whatever. But they're not rock and roll. There's no guitars in there.
No. Well, if there is, it's just a snippet or a riff they stole.
Yep.
So, now see, this one, you may not agree with this. This band was in the class of 2019, but you're thinking the Hall of Fame, and that's The Cure. Belong or doesn't belong?
No.
They don't have, I don't know.
The Cure... Is that the one they say Friday I'm in Love?
Yes.
The lead singer sounds like every time I hear him sing, like he just was notified that his mom passed away.
Yeah.
He sounds like he's crying when he sings, and that's a bit too much for me.
Yeah, and he's like that in pretty much every song they've ever done. So, let's see. Still looking. This one's. I would actually probably vote this one in. He was in the class of 2014. Peter Gabriel. Just what he's meant.
Yeah, I have no problem with that because he was also part of a larger band, and then he made it big on himself. So yeah, I don't have any problem with that. Somebody calling you? There we go. And we're back.
Yeah, I'm not sure we haven't had a little bit of a technical issue. So yeah, going through the list, I just wanted to, kind of get an idea. But yeah, we'll move on to it because we got a lot to cover. But yeah, Iron Maiden not being on that list is an absolute travesty.
What's you while you have that? Which one was the glaring? Just you got to be kidding me.
Let's see.
And for me, there's one or two of them every year.
Yeah.
Because like Whitney Houston, that's not rock and roll, that's pop. Notorious B.O.G. is rap. If you're going to call it the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame,
oh yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Yeah,
I agree. I mean, looking through this list, man, there's not too many that wouldn't be in, and it's there's your boy Randy Newman.
Randy Newman?
Randy Newman, inducted in 2013. Now this one's going to glare at you. Now this person, and I think you'll be in agreement. This person I feel, and I think her band that she was associated with they're definitely in the Hall of Fame. But this person is in the Hall as a solo artist. I don't agree with this. She was in the class of 2019, Stevie Nicks.
Solo once again, artist? She was part of such a phenomenal group. I'm not sure if I have a terrible time with it because she did have some pretty big albums. And yeah, but you're right. And if you're going to have something like that, you need to be... You should have high standard. It's the Hall of Fame. It's the pinnacle. Like
it is.
ABBA?
And again, I like Stevie Nicks. I do. I like her. We've talked about this before. I love Fleetwood Mac. Love that band. And they're a first ballot Hall of Fame band to me. Fleetwood Mac is just, oh man. But Stevie Nicks as a solo artist, I don't, like you said, it's the pinnacle of your career. It's the ultimate honor. And okay, going back to rap, and Tupac Shakur, class of 2017.
And Blondie. Are you kidding me? Blondie. Yeah. They had Call Me, The Tide Is High, and Rapture. Boop. That's it. End of story. Not Hall of Fame. Good. Yep. Memorable. Absolutely. It just epitomizes the 80s. Hall of Fame. That just tells me your standards are ankle high.
Well, that, and it also says that it's watered down. It's very watered down.
Yep.
Okay, there's another band that kind of stands out. You may or may not agree. Traffic, class of 2004.
Agreed. That good, memorable. That's who was that? Was that Clapton?
I don't know a whole lot about Traffic. Let me pull it up. There's a link that I can go to. No, it was Steve Winwood.
Winwood, that's right.
Chris Wood, Dave Mason, Jim Capaldi, and that's it. Yeah, I had to look too. I was thinking, my first thought was Clapton. But yeah, they were inducted, you figure 17 years ago. Like, I mean, how many big albums did they have?
Yep. Gladys Knight in the Pips. Just on and on and on. And once again, not knocking them musically. I love some Aretha Franklin and the Beastie Boys, but it's not rock and roll.
Here's another one. The Velvet Underground. Seriously?
They only had one album, didn't they?
If it was more than one, it wasn't much more.
Wasn't it the guy from STP? Oh no, that's Velvet Revolver. I'm sorry,
Velvet Revolver. Yeah. I don't know. The Zombies, class of 2019. Like you said, this is the pinnacle, the Hall of Fame. Like, honorable mention. Great bands, but are they Hall of Fame material? I don't know. That's our rant for the day on that. But yeah, George and I talked about this a couple of nights back, and it was like you sent me a text telling me, a classmate of ours back in high school passed away. Like, are you kidding me?
Yep. They should have been among, if let's say you only did 3 bands a year and you were really just being super tight. By the 3rd year, they should have been in. You want to do Iron Maiden or, Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, Rolling Stones. I mean, they're going to be in the top 10.
Yeah, and all 4 of those other bands you mentioned, all in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. Well, they should be.
So.
And Iron Maiden might not even make our first ballot if we only do 3. It might be Zeppelin, the Beatles. You got to look at albums sold. I mean, look, let's be honest. That is albums sold is one of the most glaring examples of how popular a band is. Yeah. You tell me the Animals have sold more than 100 million albums? Hell no. They probably have sold 10 million albums. A dumpster fire. Well, so look for that, folks. I'm going to work on that this week. We're going to have ourselves the Weekly Retro. I'll put the store on the website, and then we'll, here in the near future, we'll set up a Patreon, and we'll do a special video show for just the website, members only. You'll need a password to get on there. And we'll play songs, we'll watch videos, we'll have a totally gnarly time.
Sounds good.
All right. So let's, because we haven't talked enough about music, let's get into our songs of the week. You go first, and we could talk about music all day. But Gunnar, what do you have, brother?
I kind of went. I've since we've been doing this, I've come up with glaringly big songs of the '80s. My band and my song, they're popular. They're still, from what I understand, they're still a band today. May not do quite as much, but I heard this song working in the stock room at the old Jamesway store.
Jamesway.
And they would have, we had a tape or a CD back in the office that would play, nonstop throughout the day. And I think the CD was, 90 minutes, but this song was on it. And it was one of the first. It was the first time I'd heard it was at this job, but it was a Heartbreak Beat by the Psychedelic Furs.
Have you ever seen them in concert?
No, I haven't.
Psychedelic Furs. They were a very niche group back in the 80s, and I think most of back in the 80s, the folks who liked them, they had the black hair, they wore the eyeliner. You know what I'm saying? The original Breakfast Club kind of look.
Yeah, and I'm not much of a because I would consider them punk, wouldn't you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and I've never been big into punk bands, but the first time I heard that song and I heard that the chorus, I'm like, oh man, this is a cool tune. And it was one of those things because it was on repeat, and the song I'd hear it 5 times a day, and they would change it up. Like once a week, they put a different CD in, and it was, it came from the home office. They would send a CD because they'd have their little, advertisements and stuff. But I just that's the first time I heard it, and I've downloaded it to stream. But I just think it's such a cool song.
Was it their highest charting song?
I would probably venture to say it was.
Because I'm looking at it, it hit number 11, which is because Psychedelic Furs was never didn't get a whole lot of radio airplay, but that's pretty impressive. This would have been 86, 87?
87, I believe.
87. Good year. And where was Jamesway at? I remember Bradley's, but I don't remember Jamesway.
Jamesway, they had a couple of locations. The one I worked at was in an old strip mall, which is now an office complex. But it was called the Newcastle Square Mall.
Oh, that's right.
And it was about 3 miles away from my house. That's where I saw a lot of all my 80s movies for $1.
Oh, that's right. The Twin Theater.
Yeah. The 2-screen theater. But that was like their flagship store for that mall. And I worked there. I was there about a year and a half, and it was probably my first quote big job where I wasn't like bussing tables or would you like fries with that, but but I remember I getting it and working there for a good while, and then I think my next venture was at that great Delaware Discount Betting on Kirkwood Highway that I got through you.
Nice.
So, yep, that's my song.
Great song. Well done. Mine, Depeche Mode. I had this and another one, but I went with this one just because this one is in my rotation. It's very good. It's Enjoy the Silence by Depeche Mode. Officially, it was released February 5th, 1990. It was recorded in 89. To me, it's one of the last songs that had that 80s feel to it before, music completely transformed in 91 with Nirvana, R&B, the boy bands, and all that stuff. But Enjoy the Silence. It was from their 7th album, Violator. It's certified gold in the U.S. and Germany, and the song won the Best British Single at the 1991 Brit Awards. Just a fantastic song. The B-side was Memphisto, which decent song, but I really, really, really enjoyed the song. It's in a lot of movies, just really, really good.
Yeah, that was actually I think I told you this. That's my favorite Depeche Mode song, Enjoy the Silence. That Violator also featured Personal Jesus, which upset a lot of religious Christians in general. And it really wasn't, in fact, not really, it wasn't about what people think.
No.
They thought that it was sacrilegious and that it was a mockery of Jesus, and it wasn't at all. And actually the song has been redone by several bands.
Yeah.
Def Leppard actually included it as a 7-inch single on their greatest hits. They did it. And then Sammy Hagar and the Circle actually just recorded it on their last album. So it's just talking about having that person in your life that you can lean on, depend on, be there for you. You can pick up the phone and give them a call. They're available to you day and night. So that had one of the coolest riffs, riff in it, man. That was just the coolest flipping song. But Enjoy the Silence, man. That was a fantastic cut.
Yeah,
Very
my runner-up,
song.
which is probably not a lot of people's number 2, but I really love Policy of Truth.
Yeah, which I believe was also on that album.
Indeed, right after Enjoy, it followed it.
And I think those three. I think it was 4 singles off that record. Enjoy the Silence being one, Personal Jesus, which I think that song. I don't know which one charted higher, Enjoy the Silence or Personal Jesus. And then, the other one that you had mentioned. So Policy of Truth. It had been a while since I heard that. I actually was watching a YouTube video and they were reviewing that album. But yeah, good choice, buddy. Good choice.
All right, let's keep it rolling. We'll let you lead off with your movie of the week.
All right. Well, you and I went back and forth. It's funny because what I actually picked and what your choice was, they were my 2 finalists. And I ended up going with, before I even talked to you, knew what your choice was. I ended up going with the other because the one that I didn't choose, you picked. But my choice, I remember it also came out in 1987. And I remember seeing it once again at the Dollar Theater. And it was one of those movies that just shocked the freaking pants off of you. And that was Michael Douglas and Glenn Close in Fatal Attraction.
Yeah, that was one of those movies when you walked out of there, because I saw it in the movie theater. I just thought about the movie all night. My jaw hit the ground. Very memorable scenes. Obviously, the scene where Glenn and Michael Douglas get it on, they're pretty wild. Then, of course, everybody remembers the bunny boiling, which is...
Oh, that was disturbing.
Yes.
And then, when he came back to visit her and he spent the night and then he had to leave and go to work. And, as he's hugging her, she's touching his face and smearing blood all over his face, and she had slit her wrists.
Yep.
So he had to, take her in the bathroom and run it under cold water. It was one of the first dark, psychotic movies before they became the norm. And then of course the end scene, how that all came about. Like you said, you left the theater and you had to pick up your jaw behind you because it was dragging on the floor, and it was like, oh my word, what did I just watch? It was messed up. It was just a deranged, screwed up, shocking movie.
Yeah, but it was great. It was, I mean, when you leave the theater feeling like that, those guys really It had a memorable performance because it left a mark on you. And anytime you can say a movie and 90% of the people go to that same scene of a 2-hour movie, it's definitely something that had an impact.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great movie. Mine, I went a little lighter. It was kind of the early 80s. It was the raunchy comedies were starting to come around. You had Porky's, you had Police Academy, you had what's the one that makes all the vacation movies? What's the name of that troupe that makes all those raunchy movies in the 80s? But anyway, yeah. Fast Times was one of those raunchy movies, memorable movies. But the cast, I think a lot of people forget. The star-studded cast. By the way, Cameron Crowe wrote the book and the screenplay for that movie. But you had Sean Penn, which this was one of the most memorable. Let's see if this works.
You worked at All American Burger
7 months ago.
I knew it.
I guess that's more of a video than an audio, but he's ringing it up. Jeff Spicoli was one of the greatest characters in comedy history.
Yeah. Yeah, and people, walking around, saying gnarly and dude.
Yep.
And had the surf look and, that movie put him on the map.
Absolutely.
And had it not been for some of the roles he took later, he actually could have been really badly typecast and hurt his career.
100%. And do you remember the guy from My Favorite Martian?
Oh yeah, Mr. What's his name in the movie? I know who you mean. He was the teacher.
Was it Mr. Vargas?
Yeah, no.
Oh no, that's the guy with the weird eyes.
When he tried to bring pizza into the classroom, and he was taking slices of his pizza to eat it.
Oh, Mr. Hand.
To his classmates. Yeah, that's. I want to have to. I think you can stream that, and I think I own it on Blu-ray. I gotta watch that again. I watched it here not too long ago, but it's just a great movie.
Yeah. Sean Penn, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Judge Reinhold, Phoebe Cates, a very young Phoebe Cates, Ray Walston from My Favorite Martian.
There you go.
Vincent Schiavelli, which you may not know the name, but when you see his face, you'll be like, oh yeah, that guy who had the creepy eyes. A very young Forrest Whitaker was in that movie, and a lot of people forget about that.
Yeah, he was a football player
in
the movie, I think. Probably his first role. I actually didn't realize he was in it until I saw the movie the first time when I bought it on Blu-ray and popped it in and watched it. I'm like, oh my word, it's Forrest Whitaker. So yeah, he was young in that role. Well, yeah, and of course, the Phoebe Cates scene, that was one of the most memorable scenes in cinematic history, not only in 80s cinematic history, but of all time.
Yeah.
I'd venture to say if you could stream that clip anywhere, it would probably get millions upon millions of hits.
Yeah. Yeah, that was quite memorable. So there you go. And once again, our songs of the week and our movies of the week, the trailers for the movies are there. And Depeche Mode and Gunner, Psychedelic for His Heartbreak Beat. The full videos are on there. If you've never heard them before, just go straight to theweeklyretro.com, click Songs of the Week, and check them out. Let's keep this going. This day in history. Did you remember this? May 17th, 1980, following an earthquake with a magnitude of 5.1 on the Richter scale, Mount St. Helens in Washington state erupted in one of the greatest volcanic explosions ever recorded in North America.
I do remember that quite well, actually. I remember hearing about it on TV, back when, news reporting was ethical and actually, factual. I don't know. It's been so long. I don't know if you can remember that far back, George, but Yeah, I remember seeing it on TV, on the nightly news. I remember it being in the newspaper the next day. Yeah, big stuff.
It was a big deal. I remember that. I remember exactly where it was. We were in science class. The teacher had it on. They explained it in depth, how the volcanoes work. And we were all worried about if the suit was going to come to Delaware. You know, when you're young and naive, you're scared of everything.
Yeah.
What else? Yeah, pretty significant event. And we obviously haven't seen anything like that, at least here in the States, since then. This day in 2004, as we slowly get into sports, and I have some audio clips as well, Randy Johnson became the oldest player to throw a perfect game for the Arizona Diamondbacks against those pesky Atlanta Braves.
Wow. Couldn't have happened to a better team.
Yeah, exactly. I was happy to see that it happened against the Braves. What is your most, I want to see, what's your most memorable Randy Johnson moment?
I would probably have to say when he fired a 99-mile-per-hour pitch and picked off a bird in the process and killed it.
Yeah. That's just one of those things I still can't believe when I see it. Do you understand what the chances of that happening are?
Not only the chances of it, but man, that bird didn't know what flipping hit him.
And it got destroyed. The feathers went. I'm not laughing, but I mean, it was.
Oh,
wow.
It was brutal.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, and you and I often, not us, but we go off on tangents. You know, we don't. George and I don't have things to a degree. We have a couple of things planned out. But we try to keep it as organic and free-flowing as possible. But we do we can go off on different things. But that's what makes it fun, because we can, come up with things and venture off and go down another road and venture off from there and go from there. So I say that to ask you, if you were to pick the greatest pitcher of all time in history, who would you pick?
So this isn't necessarily based on stats, because I'm sure he's probably not statistically the best pitcher of all time. But if I have a game 7 that needs to be pitched, and I can choose any person in history from their prime, 99 times out of 100, I'm going with Nolan Ryan.
Okay. Nolan Ryan actually was cheated a few times for the Cy Young.
Didn't he have like 5 no-hitters?
What's that?
Didn't Nolan Ryan have like 5 no-hitters?
Let's see.
He threw 7.
27-year career playing. That is absolutely phenomenal.
Yep, 7 no-hitters.
7. When you said 5, I'm like, no, I think it's more than that. He was an 8-time All-Star. He was an 11-time strikeout leader. He was the ERA leader twice. The Angels, Houston Astros, and Texas Rangers all retired his number. He is in the Angels Hall of Fame, the Houston Astros Hall of Fame, the Texas Rangers Hall of Fame, and he is part of the Major League Baseball All-Century team. All-time career leader in strikeouts with, hold your hat, 5,714 career strikeouts.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's but there was one year, and I want to say it was 1974, but he won 20 games, but he also lost, I think, like 16. This was back when pitchers pitched 15 complete games a year. And the game has changed so much since then, obviously. But he, in 73 or 74, is one of those 2 years, he had won 20 games. He had a minuscule ERA, but here's the stat that blows you away, which was set almost 50 years ago and is yet to be even approached. He struck out 383 batters that year.
That's insane, man.
And did not win the Cy Young Award. It went to Baltimore's Jim Palmer. Probably the biggest theft and the biggest steal in the history of Major League Baseball.
And you know what? This back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, especially the early 70s, the major newspapers and the people who vote, they watch games on the East Coast and they wouldn't stick around for the West Coast games, because you remember, we can watch everything on our phone now. Back then, nobody could watch games like they can today. So, everybody in Washington and Philly, they got to see a lot of those East Coast games. They didn't get to see a lot of Texas, and he played for the California Angels as well. So those games didn't get the national spotlight that the East Coast games did, because, once again, those games started at like 10:05 p.m. Eastern time. And these writers had a cutoff at like midnight or 1 because they had to print the paper. So if you remember, when you woke up like this morning, the games from Sunday night, you wouldn't get the box score until Tuesday.
Yeah, you're right. Because it would say you'd read where at the time of printing, the game wasn't, the finals wasn't available.
Yep. So a lot of the West Coast teams, pitchers, players, they didn't get the recognition that they deserved.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So I found the year for Ryan. It was 1973. He won 21 games, but he lost 16, which is a lot.
Yeah.
He had a 2.87 ERA,
which means he didn't get a lot of run support.
No. He started 41 games. 41. No,
that guy had an arm, just a rubber arm.
Yes. I take it back. He had 39 starts, but he appeared in 41, 2 of them in a release appearance. He had 26 complete games.
Unheard of.
4 shutouts. And in 326 innings, he struck out 383 batters, yet did not win the Cy Young Award.
Yeah, that is grand theft at a absurd level.
Oh, it is. Now, my pitcher that I had, I would probably, as much as I loved Nolan Ryan, when you're talking about a complete now keep in mind, Nolan Ryan never won a Cy Young Award in his career, which is also shocking. Did you know that?
Did you just say Nolan Ryan's never won a Cy Young?
He has never, look it up, he never won the Cy Young Award in 27 seasons. 7 no-hitters, all-time strikeout leader, never won the Cy Young Award. Grand Theft Auto.
Wow.
So when I look at a complete pitcher, though, because Ryan had his shortcomings, especially early in his career. Now, I'm not saying this to take away from what he did, but he had a very high walk ratio early in his career. He actually was much, much, much better later in his career. But, I mean, he walked a lot of batters in his first, 6 or 7 seasons. But again, first ballot Hall of Famer, just a great, great person in general, a guy that kids can look up to. And I still have that image of trying to think who it was who he threw an inside pitch to a batter, and he actually was stupid enough to charge the mound.
Oh, yeah, the guy who played for the White Sox.
Who was it?
The guy who played for the White Sox.
For the White Sox. And he just pummeled the guy. And this guy was 20 years younger than Nolan Ryan, and Nolan Ryan beat the crap out of him. That was the greatest event, I think, in baseball that I can think of.
Yeah, didn't he go on to be the White Sox manager?
Yes, yes, he did. I'm trying to think. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Somebody's yelling into their phone right now.
What's that?
Somebody who's listening is yelling into their phone right now the answer. It was Robin Ventura.
Robin Ventura, yep. Yep. Yeah,
Wasn't he the one who
inside
slid into
pitch.
third and his foot got spun around upside down?
Oh, it was funny. Like he charged him out like he was going to, show Nolan Ryan something, and Ryan immediately headlocked him and just
Started
gave him
pounding his
that
head.
five or six punches right to the head, man.
No, but wasn't Robin Ventura the guy who went to slide into base and his foot got broken, spun upside down?
That I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I'll send you that after the show, that video.
Okay.
That's one of those. That's what I remember most about Robin Ventura, more than even Nolan Ryan, because the whole world screamed. That was like on a nationally televised game.
Yeah, I think I remember something like a gruesome injury like that.
It was crazy.
But my guy I picked, as far as an all-around elite pitcher, was none other than that bird killer Randy Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to, for sure.
He in 22 seasons, he led the league in strikeouts 9 times.
Incredible.
Earned four ERA titles, over 100 complete games, and 37 shutouts. 10 All-Star games. I want to say, I know he won 4 Cy Young Awards. He might have won 5. He was elected to 10 All-Star games, and he is second behind Nolan Ryan with 4,875 strikeouts, which is only a mere 900 less than Ryan, which that just blows me away.
Why did the Mariners ever let him go?
Well, I think their GM was a major crackhead and a coke dealer, so he might have been on one of his.
He was on a binger.
Yeah.
I mean, I get politics, not politics. I get contracts, and if you're a team that's struggling and you can get a lot of draft picks, but for Randy Johnson, he left there. I mean, you're talking. He left a team who had never won a World Series, went to another team that never won a World Series, and they won a World Series.
Well, and the reason I picked Randy Johnson, why he was my choice, only slightly over Nolan Ryan, is he achieved every great achievement a major league pitcher can have. He's done it all. He pitched a perfect game. He's pitched a no-hitter. He's won multiple Cy Young Awards. He's won ERA titles. He's won the strikeout title. He's been an all-star, and he's been a World Series champion and a World Series MVP. He was the co-MVP with Curt Schilling in 2001 when the Arizona Diamondbacks shocked those New York Yankees. And he was just a catalyst for that team. And when you talk complete all-around pitcher, when you look at the dictionary, there's Randy Johnson. And second all-time in strikeouts. And he was a lefty, no less. So, yeah, he to me is, in my humble opinion, he's the greatest pitcher of all time.
Yeah, Curt Schilling will probably never get into the Hall of Fame, mostly because of his politics.
Well, he actually asked to have his name rescinded from future balloting, because he was so angry. Because the reason he didn't get in was that. And Curt Schilling, the jury's kind of out on him. I still have a hard time forgiving him for being in that Phillies dugout, and every time Mitch Williams pitched, he would cover his head.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm not going to hold that against. That's the thing. When I look at Hall of Fame, I just look at numbers. Because once you start opening cans of worms like that, then you have to do that to every single player.
No.
Then you got to look at the players from 1900. Well, he was a racist and this and that. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I agree with you. And I'm not saying that to say, because he did that, he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. No, I'm just saying, of all the things that he achieved, I remember that indelible image of him in the dugout with the towel over his head.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing that I remember him was the bloody sock.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, talk about having a set of balls and pitching lights out while in tremendous pain and you're bleeding through your sock. That right there gets you in the Hall
That's what I'm saying. That was because, like, if you look at the NFL Hall of Fame, most people in there are Super Bowl winners. Very few, you got your Dan Marinos and things like that. But when you're champion, and he was a 2-time champion, right? He won one with the Red Sox and one with the Diamondbacks, right?
Correct.
So, I mean, end of story.
Yeah. Yep.
One of the biggest. I mean, to me, he's top 10 big game pictures in the history of baseball.
Oh yeah, not even a question.
Yeah. So once again, it's all politics, and it's disturbing that people can't separate their personal feelings from a professional. And even when we talked about Barry Bonds last week, I probably put him in. You know, I think it's dumb that he did it because he would have been a Hall of Famer without the steroids.
Yeah.
But he was never suspended. The Mitchell report, had names on there. I just think these guys, I mean, I'm not going to get into that, but I mean, I know he did it, but I think it's more of a shame on baseball for allowing that stuff to happen with McGwire and Sosa and Bonds than it is a shame on the player because they allowed them to get away with it because they were running with the ratings.
Yeah. Yeah, and who can hit the most home runs and, who can hit the furthest.
Yeah. Two more big things here. This day in 1939, so we're talking 82 years ago, the first televised sporting event in the United States. And it was actually a college baseball game between Princeton and Columbia. It aired on NBC.
Wow. I think I do remember reading about that.
Yeah. And then lastly, this is more of a pop culture, and then we're going to get into three huge sports events that took place this day. Frank Baum's The Wonderful Wizard of Oz was first published on this day in 1900. It became a classic of children's literature. And of course, the 1939 film adaptation is among the most beloved movies in American cinema. Have you ever watched the version where they link, don't they link The Wizard of Oz with Pink Floyd, The Wall or something? Dark Side of the Moon or?
I don't know. One, because I was never a Pink Floyd fan, and watching what I did see of The Wall was like tripping out on acid. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case, though.
Okay, so it's Dark Side of the Moon. Or
you said Dark Side of the Moon.
Dark Side of the Rainbow. Oh, Dark Side of the Rainbow, also known as Dark Side of Oz, refers to the pairing of the 1973 Pink Floyd album The Dark Side of the Moon with the 1939 film The Wizard of Oz. The members of Pink Floyd have denied any intent to connect the album to the film.
Of course.
What's your thoughts on The Wizard of Oz?
I think I never had, some people say, oh, it spooked me, and the, certain characters kind of, gave me the willies. It was an okay movie. I mean, maybe a tad overrated, but, for its time, it was, it was huge. I mean, you're talking 82 years ago. Oh, yeah, 82 years ago. And, it put Judy Garland on the map, and it to this day, people enjoy the crap out of it. So, it wasn't my thing. It's not something I'd sit and, kick back with, my favorite beverage and watch, but I can see why it appeals to people.
All right. This day in sports history, 1964, the Phillies had one of those great triple plays against the Houston, what were they called before they were called the Astros?
Colt 45s.
The Colt 45s. And incidentally, just 5 years later, in football, the Baltimore Colts, by the way, we need to talk about that someday. Do you remember? I think we were probably about 14, because I think it happened in 83. When
they moved?
Yeah, the Mayflower truck showed up and Baltimore moved in the middle of the night from Baltimore to Indianapolis, right?
Yeah, yep.
But yeah, Baltimore, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh agreed to go from the NFC to the AFC. So back in the day, Baltimore, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh were part of the NFC.
You know what? As much as I know about football, I never knew that.
Neither did I.
Wow.
Yeah, they used to be in the NFC. I mean, we know that like for me, I still get upset about this, but I'm going to control myself. Houston Astros are a National League team.
I agree.
One of the greatest playoff series in baseball, and I know I'm partisan to this. The Phillies Astros, 1980, when it was 5 games. That was pretty dramatic.
No, it was dramatic. It was epic. It was nail biting, and I remember that series well. And the Phillies, especially Game 5, with Nolan Ryan on the mound. That same Nolan Ryan we discussed earlier. He was dominating, and the Phillies came back, and I think they won it in extra innings. Correct?
They sure did.
Yeah,
10 innings.
Yeah, that was that year. I just knew the Phillies were not going to be denied. Yeah. And I got a fun fact for you.
Bring it.
I was actually in and I'll tell you how it happened. I was in the 1980 Philadelphia Phillies parade.
You went to the parade?
Well, not intentionally. So the day of the parade, which I want to say, I don't know if it was the following day or 2 days later, but I was going to a class trip to the Philadelphia Zoo. And when we left the zoo to go back through, because you drove past Veterans Stadium, the Spectrum and JFK, the sports complex as they referred to it, you had to go through all of that to get back on 95 over the bridge past the airport and into Wilmington. So we went there, and unbeknownst to us, got caught in the traffic. And we were there for probably, my memory serves me correctly, we were stuck in that for about 2 hours. But
wow.
Oh, the sights we saw, you saw the players, you saw the float. Now, I was too young to really appreciate it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could say that, I was in the 1980 Phillies parade. It was really cool. I had never seen so many people in all my life, dude.
Yeah. Now, back then, they played the playoff games during the day. And in 6th grade, my social studies teacher was the biggest Phillies fan. And he was an artist, too. And he had colored chalk, and he drew a picture to this day. I mean, this was 40 years ago, and I still remember it. He drew a picture on the chalkboard of Tug McGraw in the blue, red, white, and it said, "One more, Tugger." So it would have been, the day before the final game of the World Series. And I remember during the Astros Phillies game, they had one-day game. He wheeled the black and white TV on the TV stand, and we watched the game.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you don't get that anymore.
No.
But I will say this in defense, and I'm not going to say, you're not going to hear me say this often. In defense of Major League Baseball, have you noticed so far how many afternoon games they've had so far this year?
No, I haven't. No.
Yeah, a lot.
That's good.
And
they need to.
It's nice because,
Yep.
I mean, well, up until I'd say probably up until about maybe 15 to 20 years ago, a lot of the league championship series games were afternoon games. Now, the World Series used to be strictly afternoon up until, 40 years ago. But yeah, back in the 60s and mostly into the 70s, every World Series game was a day game.
Yeah, and a lot of these young whippersnappers don't know that the Cubs didn't even have lights in their stadium until, I want to say, 92, and I could be completely wrong, but I know it wasn't more than 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah, I thought, I seem to remember it was like 87 or 88. But
oh, was it then?
But yeah, I remember what a huge deal it was that the Cubs finally got lights after 83 years or whatever it was, and they were able to have night games.
August 8th, 1988.
Okay, I thought I said 87, but I knew it was
88.
like later 80s.
So yeah, kids, during our high school years, if you wanted to watch a Cubs game at home, it was in the afternoon.
Yep.
And there's something special about how every football field has the same dimensions. That's one of the cool things about baseball. Every field's a little different. When I play MLB The Show, I like to play on the Polo Grounds because if you get a ball past the outfielders, it rolls like 500 feet. You can always get an inside the park home run.
So, okay. You have the newest MLB The Show?
No, I think I play 19 still.
Oh, okay. But you can play the Polo Grounds, huh?
Oh, yeah, you can play all the Forbes Field, the old Yankee Stadium, Veterans Stadium. That they have a whole selection of old ones.
That is too cool.
Yeah. All right. This day in 1970, one of the greatest players, if not the greatest player in baseball history, collects his 3,000th hit.
Earlier in the season, the modest, imperturbable star of two cities, Milwaukee and now Atlanta, took dead aim on number 3,000. And Henry Aaron got it in Cincinnati, the first man ever to put 3,000 hits and 500 home runs together.
Well, this is a great feeling, really. You have to realize that there have been so many great ball players that have played this game, and I'm speaking about fellas like Ruth, Williams, and just to name a few of them that have played this game and haven't accomplished this feat. This is really great, really. I just feel overwhelmed, and I just feel like a newborn child.
What a great guy. And, we were talking about Barry Bonds earlier. And with everything I said earlier, I still consider Hank Aaron the single-season home run leader.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and you and I talked about this either our last show or the show before that. My thoughts, and I always respect yours. You know that. My thoughts on Bonds and Sosa and the Rocket and all that. But the fact that you got a guy like Aaron who did what he did, like you said, 3,000 hits, 500 home runs in a career. I think only 2 or 3 guys have ever done that. To have that record toppled by a guy who was juicing and hit 75 home runs in a season, that never sat well with me.
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, I'm not going to argue with my personal feelings on Barry Bonds. And once again, the thing that gets under my skin the most, he would have been a Hall of Famer without even drinking a cup of coffee. He was naturally talented. But,
yeah.
One thing I will say, I've competed with people who went on to be at the top of their game. They don't like to lose. I mean, if they strike out, they lose sleep over it, where me and you, we'll get them tomorrow. The competitive level that these people who are top of their profession is insane. But, greed, unlike what Michael, what's his name? The guy from your Fatal Attraction movie, Michael
Douglas.
Michael Douglas said in Wall Street, greed is good. It's not always good.
No. Well, and I will add that topic on this. The way I kind of compared it, it's like, like you said, Bonds didn't need, he was a first ballot Hall of Famer without it, but because he did it, it tarnished him. To me, I liken it to an honors society student cheating on a final exam.
Yeah, there you go.
Like you're the best student in the class and you felt the need to cheat. Like why?
Exactly. Yeah, because the 99 wasn't good enough for you.
Exactly.
All right. Our second of 3 on this days. And of course, it's May, so most of them are going to be baseball. There's not a lot of other sports going on right now. One of the greatest games in baseball history. And once again, I'm a Phillies fan. I'm going to be partial. But I remember watching this game. We had to leave to go to my Little League game at the time. And they were playing it on the radio because it was still going on. May 17th, 1979. And I bought the DVD, still have it, watch it once every 6 or 8 weeks. This is how this game ended.
Shakeoff may have been a fake. There's a high fly to left. Look out now. Look out. It's gone. It's a home run by Schmidt. Oh, brother. Mike Schmidt has just gotten his second home run of the day, and now the Phillies lead in this ball game by a score of 23-22.
The Philadelphia Phillies beat the Chicago Cubs in 10 innings, 23-22.
Well, was that in the 70s, 76?
That was May 17th, 1979. I was 10 years old. I was playing for Krebs PTA Little League. I had my uniform on, sitting on my porch watching the game. Dad's like, "We got to go." I'm like, "But they scored more points than the Eagles that week."
Yeah.
Listen to this. Bake McBride had 8 at-bats. You had Bake McBride, Larry Boa, Pete Rose, Mike Schmidt, Del Unser, one of the greatest off-the-bench players in baseball history,
Yep.
Gary Maddox, Bob Boone, Randy Lurch. Listen, they had 5 pitchers pinch hit in that game because they were running out of players. Randy Lurch got an at bat. He got a hit and a run.
Wow.
And then I guess who had the biggest game?
I
Pete
thought
Rose and
Schmidt
Mike
had a
Schmidt
couple
each
home
had
runs.
4 RBIs. And Gary Maddox. So between them 3, they had 12 runs batted in.
Huh. Wow. Yeah, I remember that game. My brother is to this day, a huge Michael Jack Schmidt fan. I actually had a poster in my room. I don't know if you remember this. It was called MVP and Cy.
Oh, yeah.
And it had a picture of Mike Schmidt holding a bat on fire and Steve Carlton holding a baseball on fire. And I had that poster in my wall for, I don't know, 2-3 years. You can Google it to see the image. It's Schmidt kind of he's on the left and he's looking over it with a big, smile on his face, holding a bat that's in flames, looking at, Carlton, and Carlton in a rare moment has a big smile. But I guess when you're, paid $1 million to have that poster made.
So this game had so many factoids about it. One of the biggest facts, this is one of the few games in all of baseball history. You look at it, there's 162 games played every year. Look at how many teams and how many years baseball's been around since, the 1870s? Mm-hmm. One of the only games where both starting pitchers only got a third of an inning and was pulled.
Oh, man.
Randy Lurch started, or actually Dennis Lamp, because they were the home team. He started. He got 1 out. He only got 1 out. He gave up 6 hits and 6 runs and 2 home runs he pulled from the game. So the Phillies were up, let's see here, 6-0 in the first inning. So Randy Lurch takes the mounds for the Phillies. He gets 1 out, gives up 5 hits, 5 earned runs. He's gone from the game. And then one other factoid, do you know who relieved Dennis Lamp? And we just talked about him the other day. Donnie Moore.
Donnie Moore, wow.
Donnie Moore came in, pitched 2 innings, gave up 7 runs. So before the 3rd inning was over, it was 13-8 or something crazy. I love that DVD. You can, if you guys want to check it out, go on Amazon. It's not that expensive.
It was always, and I remember, you and I were really, really huge in the baseball in the late 80s and early 90s. But I remember whenever the Phillies went to Wrigley Field because of the wind and the way it blew, like, it was always an adventure. Indeed. Like, you'd see a guy hit just a lazy fly ball and and this actually happened. You'd see the outfielder kind of come in a few steps, then back up, then come in another 3 or 4 steps, back up, and then wild outs over the fence. Like, what would normally be a shallow fly ball at Veterans Stadium back then was a home run if the wind was blowing out. Do you remember all that?
Absolutely, absolutely. And what was the name of the street they always hit it out on? The street that's right outside of...
behind left field, the left field wall. Yeah, I know.
And listening to Harry Carey just drunk, carrying on.
Oh, yeah, yep. But, it was always an adventure whenever, like, they'd play. And if, Will, if the wind was blowing out the left, like, it was like playing a video game baseball, like... Yep. RBI baseball, like, so it was cool, but man, to me that was those Phillies teams of 77 through 80, man, they were fun to watch. Shake and bake, and remember Dave Cash?
Absolutely, yep.
Oh man, and you mentioned Del Unser, Jay Johnstone.
He went on to do, was it This Week in Baseball, where he was always doing funny stuff?
Yep. Real tall guy.
Yep.
Randy Lurch, Bob Walk. He started his career with the Phillies. He was actually the first rookie to start a World Series game, a Game 1 World Series.
Yep. Dick Ruthven.
Yep. Now, a funny story before we move on. Dickie Knowles, actually, this has probably been about 5 years ago. Dickie Knowles actually attended my church for about a month every Sunday.
Really?
Yeah. I'm the one who spotted him. I was sitting near my brother, and we were in the middle section of the church, and we were probably 5 or 6 rows back. And I'm just looking around. Church hasn't started yet. People are mingling and talking. I look over, I see this dude, like, kind of on the end, kind of by himself, and still had the curly. Remember, he had the curly hair.
Yep.
And he's aged very well, actually. I look over, and I'm talking to my brother. I'm like, Danny. He looks at me, and I'm like, I don't want to make it obvious. I said, is that Dickie Knowles? And he looks over, and he was like catty corner, and he was just a few rows back. He looked at me, and his eyes got big. He's like, yes, it is. So, of course, what my church does is at the beginning, when everybody's standing and singing, they'll say, okay, who's a first-time visitor? Well, he raised his hand, and he got a visitor card to fill out, and it had his name on it. Long and behold, it was Dickie Knowles. Wow. He was looking for a church, and he came for about 4 Sundays, and then we never saw him again. So, yeah.
And what year would have this been?
This was probably, if I was to guesstimate, I'd say 2014 or 15, maybe even earlier than that.
Oh, wow. So he retired in this area, obviously.
Yes. Yep.
Because he actually started his career with the Phillies, and he ended his career in 1990 with the Phillies as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he played with 7 or 8 teams, because remember, he played with the Cubs for a couple years, then he went to the Rangers too, and then he kind of hopped from year to year to year.
Yeah, Indians, Tigers. I think he was with Baltimore for a little bit.
That's right.
But yeah, he started his career in 79, and he retired in 90.
Nice.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it does say here he is a born-again Christian.
Awesome.
Very
apparently,
cool.
Your church didn't cut the mustard.
No, I guess it didn't.
Did you ever have a chance to shake his hand?
I didn't, but my brother did. He said something to him about being on the '80s championship team, and he said he was nice, he was pleasant, but you could tell he was a little uncomfortable with, almost like I'm here to go to church, and
right.
I really don't want to bring a lot of attention to myself. But like I said, he wasn't rude at all. He was very, very accommodating, but he shook my brother's hand and smiled a little bit. But he said, "Yeah, I'm just in the area looking for a church." And he didn't say a whole lot they didn't say a whole lot to each other, but that was actually a pretty cool experience.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to wrap the third and final this day in sports history of a player who you loved and then you loathed. His perfect game this day, 1998.
Today, we welcome you back to the most historic place in sports. It's the series finale between the Yankees and the Minnesota Twins.
Went out into the bullpen, and I was fighting myself a little bit. I launched a couple balls into the stands just out of frustration. But Mel was saying, "You're all right. You got good stuff."
I felt like he was going to have a very special game, but I always think of shutout as being a particularly special game.
I know it had been used for Don Larson on a newspaper lead. This was the imperfect man pitching the perfect game.
As the game transpired, it was something that the crowd started getting into it.
Got it. He has retired all 9 Minnesota Twins. Perfect through 3.
I knew what was going on. Trying to find a spot on the bench with somebody else.
I don't want to have anything to do with him.
It's like parting of the Red Sea. He's like, everyone's leaving me. I'm like, what's going on here, man? At least talk to me. Give me something to work with here.
And then as the game progressed, we were like, oh my God, we're dealing with history here.
Like Joe has had his hands tucked in his jacket pocket since the first pitch of the ball game. Here's the payoff pitch. Swung on and missed, strike 3. 21 in a row have been retired.
The only guy that talked to me was Coney. Coney's like, you show me nothing if you don't go out there and throw a couple knuckleballs and all that. I'm like, well, that's what I want to hear. It was starting to get really tense.
It's amazing, the chills that just go through your body just sitting there being part of it.
What if the bullets hit to me? What if I need to make a spectacular play to save the no-hitter?
Towards shortstop, couple of hops. Jeter bobbles it for a moment. That is 22 in a row.
No-hitter, you can make an error and then, the guy can still get the no-hitter and then you're off the hook. But perfect game, there's no room for any flaws, no errors, nothing.
Toward Knobloch, he knocks it down, recovers, throws in time. 23 in a row.
at Yankee Stadium, the fans are just so incredible there, and they're so into the game, and it makes it even that much more exciting.
Got him on strikes, the 11th strikeout, and David Wells is down to one more out for the 15th perfect game in Major League history. No movement on the Yankee bench. Popped up right field near the line. O'Neill appears to have room. He puts it away, and David Wells has pitched a perfect game.
This day in 1998, David Wells pitches a perfect game.
Yeah, man. And it's funny, you said that I liked and loathed. I loathed him only because he was a Yankee.
Right.
But I loved him overall as a player. And I told you this story. He started his career with the Toronto Blue Jays, and me being a Blue Jays fan, and George, you may remember this, but we went to the old Memorial Stadium.
Yep.
In I want to say it was 1989. You and I took the trip there, and we went there a few times, and we were by the dugout. It was early in the game, and David Wells was actually sitting on top of the dugout, and I had a Blue Jays pennant, and I walked up to him and I said, Mr. Wells, will you sign? Do you remember this?
Yeah, I do.
And I said, Mr. Wells, will you sign my pennant? And he said, sure. He goes, what's your name? And I said, Mark. And I still have it downstairs. And it says, to Mark, all the best, David Wells. And I got Luis Rivera, and I got two other ones too, who were like kind of not with the team very long, but yeah, he was very approachable, very nice, very accommodating. Put my name on there and then signed his own name. And I was so upset when he went to the Yankees, but then he ended up coming back to the Blue Jays, or either before or after that. Before his perfect game, but yeah, he's just an all around like nice guy. He's a strong conservative. He actually said in an interview here about a week or so ago, he no longer watches the game because it's become far too political.
Yeah, we could talk about that all day too, because it's funny. I was just listening to an interview and or a radio show in the morning. It's more political, but he was talking about baseball this morning and how he stopped watching it after the strike. And baseball lost. It certainly was never the same after that. I went back to it, but it was never the same.
No, it lost its luster for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because I remember before the strike, I could probably name you 95% of every player in the game. And now, like, I just know the team I watch. I know the Phillies, some of the Phillies players, and a couple players here and there. But it's funny, they'll show, so and so's coming to the game to pitch the 7th, and then this is his 8th season and his 20th. I'm like, I've never heard of this dude. You know what I mean? Like, it's become that, like, my interest in it has fallen that much. I still like it. I still watch it. But I don't know. And that's a whole story in itself, but whole show in itself, rather.
Yeah,
but,
and we'll certainly get into that.
Yep.
Well, we've only got about 3 or 4 minutes left. Daughter's got finals this week. We got to get rolling. But I do have, I don't know if you had trivia. I did have a couple that we could knock out real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which 1980s movie was the highest grossing film of the decade?
I will say Back to the Future.
Ooh, great guess. It was actually E.T. The 1982 movie surpassed Star Wars to become the highest grossing film of all time. And it held that record for 11 years until Jurassic Park topped it.
Wow.
I remember seeing Jurassic Park in the theater, and when that was awesome.
It was.
Let's see. What movie is this from? Here's a couple quotes. You tell me the movie. I Am Serious, and Don't Call Me Shirley.
Oh, that would be The Naked Gun.
No, Airplane.
No. Wait, no, Airplane.
So it was the right guy, Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah, was it Airplane?
Yeah, Airplane.
Okay, yeah. Don't Call Me Shirley. Striker.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was so good in that movie.
Yeah.
How about this one? Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
Is it Indiana Jones? And
yes, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Very well when he fell into that pit.
Yeah.
How about this one? We came, we saw, we kicked its ass. As they were standing there with green goo all over themselves.
Oh, Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters.
The green goo kind of gave it away. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known.
Movie soundtrack trivia. Here you go. Which 1980s theme song was entirely instrumental and reached number 1 in multiple countries?
Oh, wow.
It was, and when you say musical, it was actually mostly synthesizer and electronic.
I am going to have to throw you a flag. I don't know. A white flag.
Axel F. Beverly Hills Cop. Dun, 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 dun,
Oh,
dun.
wow. Yeah.
That was huge.
It was huge.
Which 1980s theme song was recorded in just 3 hours?
I got to throw you another one.
From The Breakfast Club. It was your song of the week.
Okay, don't you forget about me.
Yeah,
by
the
Simple
1985
Minds.
pop song from The Breakfast Club was rearranged and recorded by Simple Minds. It was the only number 1 song for the band.
Wow.
And then let me do one more here, and then we'll do our closing things. Which 1980s animated movie tagline was Beyond Good, Beyond Evil, Beyond Your Wildest Imagination?
Wouldn't even be able to venture a guess.
The Transformers movie.
Oh, okay.
Because remember, it was they started doing Saturday morning cartoons. Then in '86, they made the animated movie, and of course now it's become a big blockbuster Hollywood hit.
Which I can't get into, but that's just me.
Yeah, likewise, same here.
Well, I have one last thing.
Okay.
This has kind of been our closer for the last several shows. My trend of the day for the 80s. This one's actually a funny one that's going to come back to you, and then I'll see if you can come up with one. But mine is those obnoxious shoulder pads and clothes.
Are you talking about the one the girls wore?
Yeah, like they wear the jacket and like it looked like it had been starched for like 3 hours, and it was like straight across.
Girls walking around look like they're
shoulders.
playing middle linebacker for the Bears.
Yeah. Yep. Shoulder pads.
How about the girls' hair?
What's that?
How about the girls' hair back in the day?
Oh, yeah, the huge hair? Yeah. Yep. I was going to go there, and I thought, nah, that's too obvious. I want to look for one that's a little bit more obscure. So I came up with shoulder pads.
So the shoulder pad, when would you say they started becoming prevalent?
Let's see.
Probably 85, 86, right?
I'd say between 84 to about 86, because it didn't last that long.
No, and if you remember that movie with Harrison Ford when they're working at the newspaper and whatever the girl name was, that's when I remember for the first time seeing the big in the movies becoming a big thing. Maybe it was Broadcast News it was called, or
Yep. Yeah, they were. You saw it with a lot of girls actually, but they'd wear those suit jackets, and it was pretty ridiculous.
That's for sure. That's a great call, man. I need to remember that for the next show. I need to find something more obscure.
Hey, man, the heroin, that was big, man, because it affected so many people. I mean, it affected me. It affected you. It affected every female, that was, under the age of, 30. So good stuff.
Yeah, great stuff. Great show, great memories. It's always good to bring David Wells' name up. That's a great closer. And, of course, that game I'll never forget as long as I live, the 23-22 game. And look forward later on this week, folks. Keep an eye on the website. We'll get a store open. And when we raise that money, we're going to open up the real Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We'll do some inductions. And maybe we'll even order some awards and send them to the bands and see if we should do that for Iron Maiden. We should make them first ballot and put them in and send one to them.
Yeah, man. That'd be awesome.
We could get Bruce Dickinson on our podcast.
Yeah. Up the irons.
Bruce, could you sing Run to the Hills?
The Siren. Arguably one of the greatest, if not the greatest, rock and roll voice in history, in my opinion.
Sure. Top 3, 110%.
Yeah.
Well, any closing thoughts?
Other than, as always, man, awesome show. It's always a lot of fun. And I noticed we're getting more views, more downloads as we progress. So that makes me very, very happy.
Yeah, definitely big shout out to everyone who listens. And then listen, if you have any ideas, thoughts, or if you have a segment or you'd like to come on and talk about something, our house is your house. Mi casa su casa. Keep an eye at theweeklyretro.com. Look for the store to pop up this week. We'll do some retro shirts. We'll have something with the real Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Be a part of the real Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And let's get the bands in there who deserve to be in there. And das Boot to those who do not. I want to thank everybody for all your support. Continue to follow us on Twitter, email, and the website. And look out for our next show. It'll probably be a YouTube show, right? That'll be our next one.
Yeah. Yep. Probably Friday.
All right. For Gunner, I am George, saying so long from the Mideastern Seaboard. Until next time, friends, stay retro.